And I have still not edited the 2 previous episodes of the podcast or done anything with them. So
well, I think it's the sort of thing with the whole, summer thing. Schedules start to change around a little bit, but, for the people listening, it'll be continuous and it will make sense. But
yeah,
a little peek into the background,
To be completely blunt about it, it's honestly just because like my mental health has been on the fritz again. It's been like bad the past 2 or so weeks. It's just like a culmination of a lot of things. Mainly my depression coming back and hitting harder than it usually does. And that's normally not something that I deal with really. Like most of the time I'm dealing with anxiety and like having a lot of just deep anxiety, like that's led to stomach issues and all of that we've talked about in the past.
Yeah.
And then it's like I'll deal with that year round, but then depression doesn't really hit in until like winter because seasonal affective disorder really hits me and it just doubles down on everything, brings everything back.
Yeah.
But usually it's not like I don't really get that during the summer.
Yeah, so now you have humidity and depression.
Yeah, exactly.
Like great combination,
Exactly. It doesn't exactly add up. And I wonder, like, I know that it's because of a lot of things. Like, for one, I'm not outside as much as I want to be because of, like, sprained ankle didn't help with the pickleball incident from, like, 2 or 3 weeks ago, whatever that was. That's finally better, but still, like, haven't really been able to get outside into nature in the ways that I want, besides, like, a trip to North Carolina, but that's a beach, and that doesn't count for anything because I hate the beach. But then on top of that, there's, like, this job situation. And really
that's what I was thinking. I was thinking it's got to have something to do with the job situation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was spiraling really bad the other day. And thankfully, like, I have people around me, like I have David Kingham that I can text and be like, hey, like, I need someone to talk to, like, now kind of deal. And he's able to, like, help me with that. And obviously, like, family and that kind of thing if I need them. But I don't tend to go to family, which I think is more so because, like, the second that I say anything to, like, my fiance or my parents or anything, they start to worry right away. And it's like flashbacks of 2014 me when it was like suicidal ideation and that kind of thing. Whereas that's not the case where it is now. So, like, it's one of those things of, like, I don't want to worry anybody else in my family that's been through that. But anyway, it's mainly because of this job situation and trying to kind of, like, I don't want to necessarily say come to terms with everything because it's not like it's a bad thing. Like, this is absolutely a great opportunity and it's like falling into my lap.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those deals where I'm like, I feel as though I had worked so hard to get to where I'm at right now with my photography, where I'm making even the little bit of money a year that I'm making now. And I've gotten to this point and it just feels like a step back in a sense by taking a job working for someone else because you're losing freedom and all of that kind of thing too. And I know that realistically taking on this job is only going to help me. And like I met with the team that I'd be working with, or at least alongside of, adjacent to, whatever. Yeah. And met with them this morning and it went great. Like, the boss was like super impressed with my ability to speak. Like, she said that I was really well spoken, which I'm clearly not showing now. She was impressed with me. She's continued to be impressed with me. And like my neighbor who I would be working directly alongside of said that everybody was impressed with me. Everybody liked me there. So it's all a positive experience and everything. And while I was there talking with them, like in a round table kind of discussion interview sort of thing, it was like, I felt good. Like I felt as though I had some sort of expertise or at least something to bring to the table in a way that I had not felt with any other interview in the past. I had not felt that way with any teaching interview in the past. And we talked about this a little bit last time, but
Yeah.
It's still one of those deals. Like I have a bad habit of catastrophizing where I go from 0 to 100 really quick when it comes to anything, and I overthink, which makes it all the worse. So I go from like for next year, I plan on doing, or I am trying to put together 2 separate photography workshops, retreats, whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a little bit of a teaser of sorts for at least some of my plans for next year that are likely to happen. I'm hoping that they happen, but regardless, one of them will be more of a photography workshop based out in Wyoming, and the other one is going to be a creative retreat based out of Acadia, Maine. So
nice.
My big thing, like my Acadia trip this October, is obviously being dedicated towards a little bit of scouting, figuring out locations, figuring out ideas for that kind of thing.
Yeah, because you're going to have to see it from a whole different perspective compared to kind of, you have to envision how things would be, you know, with whatever you have in mind.
Exactly.
So you have to be kind of seeing it with fresh eyes in some sense.
Exactly, yeah. And then this Wyoming one that I have in mind is totally different to me. Like, I've never been to the areas that I'm looking to host this in. Luckily, it's going to be with a partner. It's going to be a co-run workshop.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about, because it seems like that would be a beneficial thing.
Yep. Yeah, so this one's going to be co-run, and he knows the area much better than I do. He already has, like, he gave a list of potential ideas for it, potential locations. But nonetheless, I want to still, you know, go out there, check out these locations, meet up with him, and scout these locations properly, so that way I'm not going in completely blind, you know? Yeah. And I think about that with this job, and I'm like, well, if I do that, that's, say, 4 days out in Wyoming that I need to take in order to do that properly, at least quickly, but properly. Then on top of that, if the workshop kicks off in, say, I don't know, June, then I need to obviously have a week off for the workshop. And then there's another week or week and a half or so for the creative retreat in, say, October. And then whatever kind of vacations or other things pop up next year, otherwise, for taking time off. And as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, well, these are all major what ifs. Like, none of this is cemented. I don't know that any of this is actually going to be happening. And I don't know really if any of this is even going to be successful, in the sense that it'll go past a one-time thing.
Yeah.
But
do you have a feeling for how flexible, if you do get this job, how flexible they are with, you know, being able to take time off or stuff like that?
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's a double-edged sword working alongside of my neighbor, whom I've known for the past decade, because I don't want to disappoint her by, like, leaving her alone to deal with our eventual clients, you know? But at the same time, I also know her very well, in the sense that she doesn't want to see me give up my passions. She doesn't want to see me, like, take this job and just say screw it to photography and not go back to it, and not continue trying to make this push for being a full-time photographer in as best of a way as possible.
Yeah, because the two things, like, you know, having the passion for these two different things, I mean, it kind of like builds upon itself.
Yeah.
And it'd be good for people to see that, to realize that, you know, you would come back from maybe a little time off the day job, but you come back energized after having, you know, pursued something else that you're passionate about as well. So if it is a sort of job where you do have that flexibility, where the people do realize that, you know, yeah, he'll be gone for a week, but he'll come back and, you know, hit the ground running, and you know, that would certainly be a very good thing.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I texted my neighbor and I'm like, hey, can you come over? Can we talk about this a minute? Like, I've got a question for you that I want to talk out in person rather than text or call. And so she came over, we talked about it, and I expressed my, like, concerns to her, and she was like, dude, chill.
That's a good sign.
That's really what it came down to, because she was like, the boss is super flexible about that kind of thing. And which I've already seen, like, this morning, I had already told HR upon the initial interview, and obviously my neighbor knew about these 2 trips, the one in September and one in October. And I told the boss, like, hey, I don't know if you heard from HR or from a neighbor, but regardless, like, this is what I have planned. Like, I just want to run it by you, make sure before we go any further with this, that it is actually okay. And she was like, yeah, I assume you're going to be in nature, like doing your creative photography, your thing. And she's like, well, yeah, we all need time off. Like, we all need to take time for ourselves.
That's good.
Like, really cool about it. And so I don't foresee myself having any issue, which of course, like, it absolutely helped to be able to like hear that both from her this morning and from my neighbor the other day. And then going in today and having this pretty solid experience with the team as a whole, like actually being able to bounce ideas around in a sense, and seeing how much everybody there values the helping or values pushing creativity for these kids and the families that we're dealing with or will be dealing with, in order to kind of, you know, help them along with their mental health, like the healing powers of creativity and of nature and self-expression.
Yeah, because I mean, I could see how from their perspective, it would be seen as an asset. You know, you're not just there for a paycheck. You know, you are invested in it. And so I can see how that would be a very good thing from their perspective. I can also see how from your perspective, it's like, you know, you have this new job, you're trying to balance things and all that, but it's good that you've gotten the response that you have so far. So that's good. That's a good sign.
Yeah. So that's everything has kind of calmed down a little bit, at least in my head for the most part. And it's just a matter of like taking baby steps each day to kind of like come to terms and eventually finding that balance, because there's like, I think tomorrow the boss and I are going to get on another call, do a sort of like corporate type interview, answering some corporate kind of questions, whatever that is required of her to do. And then after that, I have a job, like, which is so, it's so weird to say, like, and especially because this is not something that I would have ever thought about pursuing, or I'm just kind of falling into it. And it feels right as much as it can possibly feel right.
Yeah, that's good. And that's how a lot of things in life happen. It's just kind of just like we said in one of the last episodes. It's who you know. It's where you know happen to be in the right place at the right time. Where would that so assuming you get the job and then also that you have the ability to go off on some of the various trips, which is certainly very reminiscent of, you know, what I was able to do when I was working at the camera store and being able to go off and do things. And I think the owners of the shop, I think they enjoyed the fact that I had the passion. And so I can see how that could translate to sort of what you're doing as well. But where does that put you with other stuff like NPN and stuff like that?
So I'm absolutely maintaining everything that I'm currently doing while also working at this new job.
Yeah.
I definitely don't want to give up my editorial position with NPN. I don't want to let anything go by the wayside any more than I already have the past like month or so.
Yeah.
It's really just going to be a matter of finding that balance. And that's what I'm trying to slowly work on right now, prior to even starting this job, prior to even being officially offered it. Just because it's something that I really should be doing anyway, whether I had the job or not. It should have been done years ago to properly instill those habits and everything that I need to instill. But to be blunt about it, it's going to be a lot. And it's going to take me a while to figure out, especially because the training that I have to start going through is intensive. It's learning a lot of stuff about family therapy that I honestly don't have a lot of background knowledge in or background experience in. It's a lot of learning from my neighbor, from working with her, and from the various trainings and such. So I'm curious how it's all going to go through and how things are going to be. But the nice thing, at least, is once things start to settle out a little bit and we start to get into more of a routine and I get a little bit more established, I will then be able to, like, it's not like we have Monday through Friday, 80 hours a week that we're working or something. Like, it's not insane kind of work hours. It's, at least from what my neighbors told me, good work-life balance in the sense that most Fridays we have nothing, and most of the in-person kind of work happens more in the evenings, especially during the school year.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be a matter of trial and error and just making sure that I'm still getting a little bit of work done for the magazine and for my own writing and such with each passing day and seeing what I can all do.
Yeah. And you're going to be going from a situation where you had too much time, which ended up being probably a little bit of a burden for you in a way, to a situation where you probably feel like you don't have quite enough time to get everything done. But I'm curious if that is going to make for, if there's something you need to write and you have a bit more limited time, whether you will find that will provide the motivation you need to, produce something you're more satisfied with. Just because I mean, I remember like when I was starting to do more stuff for the photography thing, I'd just start getting up really early in the morning and I'd work for an hour on stuff before going to work. And I was really productive. Something about having that ticking clock, so I wonder how that's going to work out for you.
Yeah, I'm obviously hopeful for the best. And I think a big part of my lack of productivity over the past year has been largely because of having, like you said, too much time, where it's almost a bad thing because there was no pressure to get anything done. Like,
there's no incentive necessary. I mean, there may be incentive, but there's nothing pushing you.
Exactly.
You could just sit there and just keep looking at the same thing over and over again. And with more time, you start doubting, like, is this even good?
Yeah.
I know that feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like one of those, like, the only quote unquote pressure that I had were the deadlines, or certain deadlines for like the magazine being done. And even that was like, well, that's a point 3 months in the future, 2 months in the future that at least in my immediate doesn't exist. Like I have no concept of that because I don't even know what day it is.
Yes.
It's my day to day was, did I go to the gym this morning? Okay. Well, it's Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. If I didn't, then it's either Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or Sunday. And if I recorded something with Ben, or I know that I'm supposed to, it's like been a while since we haven't, then it's probably Thursday.
Yeah.
Like that was how, that's how it's been. And it makes it really difficult to get some work done because it just, there's nothing to your day. It's just like you wake up whenever and you have hours of just, I can do that later. And it just keeps getting pushed unless you have that intrinsic motivation where you really feel that you need to get it done. And I just haven't had that in a while.
Yeah. I think that's something where I've structured things in a way where I always have some sort of project I need to work on, and I have a general feeling for when it needs to get done. And it's perfectly doable, but at the same time, there's always something. So I'm pretty good at having those deadlines and just the way that everything has been structured. And I just know that if I don't get something done by a certain time, it's going to be a lot more work, a little bit later down the line. And so I do think it's important to have that sort of situation. But it'll be. It sounds like you have some. There'll be some changes. Coming up if when everything goes through and all that. But I suspect it'll be a good thing. I'm sure at some point you'll be sitting there with tons of work to do, and you'll look back and like, man, I wish I had more time. But I mean, the one thing that David told me, because as I was expressing my, like, I don't want to call them fears, but just expressing that, like, I really don't want to see myself give up on photography or writing as like a pursuit of full-time, like, work, so to speak. Yeah.
One thing that he did say was, like, take the job, take the security that it provides, both financial and when it comes to healthcare, because of losing health insurance in a month.
Yeah.
But have an end date in mind. Have a goal where you are going to say, okay, in 5 years from now, say, I want to be out of this job. I want to be on my own again in a capacity that is actually going to work. Where I'm still, because that way I'm still working on my photography, still working on my writing, still putting stuff out there. It may allow for a slower approach. I don't have to be as aggressive about it because of having this security already, but it still gives me that timeline of saying, okay, in 5 years from now, I want to be making as much, if not more, from my photography. That way I can support myself financially through that, and I can leave this job and do my own thing like I want to.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be helpful for finding that work-life balance, because I could absolutely love doing this. I could absolutely love working with kids and doing family therapy kind of sessions, or I could hate it. And I don't know.
You won't know until you're there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like from the sounds of it, it seems like something that I will really enjoy. But the reality can be a totally different situation. And so I'm going into this as open as possible and saying, I'm going to give it a year and see what happens. And so long as I like it, then I'll set that 5, 6, 10 year, whatever, deadline, so to speak, of I want to be out of it regardless how much I enjoy it, and be on my own and just see what happens.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if when, after doing this job for a while, it makes you even more passionate about the photography side of things. And I think it's, if you're just laying that groundwork in the background for the means in which to support yourself from, the photography and the writing and all that, that would certainly be good for the long run. But yeah, it's interesting because you don't really know what to expect going into it, whether, just like you're saying, whether it's something where in 5 years you'll be like, cool, I'm good, or whether you're like, oh, I want more of this. So it's hard to say. But there is certainly the notion of, you get a job and then you start working on it, then you look up and it's been, 15, 16, 20 years or whatever, and just, time goes by really, really fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it definitely have that perspective of, still wanting to make, photography as a full-time pursuit work is probably not a bad thing to have in the background.
Yeah. Especially because, like you said, I don't want to get to that point where 15 years of my life goes by and I'm like, what the hell happened? Like, yeah. I used to.
I think that happens to everyone, though. I don't think you can avoid that.
Right. I think it definitely does, but it's one of those things where I don't want those years to fly by and me to look back on it as a negative,
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to look back and say, oh, look at how I was at 25, 26, and how passionate I was for photography and writing and wanting to make this work. And now I'm still here doing something that I never thought that I'd be doing. And I may enjoy it, but it's not ultimately what my goal was. It's not ultimately what I really wanted out of life or out of these past however many years. So I think that's the biggest thing that, especially that David was trying to get across, was just that, like, have that end goal in mind, so that way that doesn't happen to you. That way you don't just get comfortable in that secure situation and lose sight of the bigger picture.
Yeah. Well, that's, it's good that things are progressing there. And, it doesn't surprise me. There's going to be some anytime you have a life change like that, it's going to have ripple effects on other things. But but I think once you get settled into it, I think you'll do well. And then it'll be wintertime. Exactly. It'll be cold and bleak outside. And so there's that.
But hey, at that point, I might have my truck. So who knows? Because that's the biggest thing about taking on a job where you have regular income is you get to spend it. And you get to spend it on things that you've been wanting for years, like an old 90s Tacoma. So we'll see what happens. But
and that's the whole thing, having something to look forward to,
exactly.
Whatever that may be. I know that's huge for me, whether it's a trip coming up, Whether it's the prospect of at some point, I'll be, as I mentioned in the last episodes, replacing my 4Runner with, probably a Tacoma with a little camper in the back. And just, I had a dream the other night that my wife and I were on a camping trip in our little camper. And I was like, oh man, this is nice. But, it's just something to look forward to, which I think makes all of the work on a daily basis. It makes it all make sense. On another note, I launched the pre-order for the print portfolio and the zine. So that was a lot of work to get everything going, but everything went smooth. At this point, there's a lot of cut and paste. When I launch that stuff, I'll just take the item on my website for the print portfolio last year, and I'll just make a new version. And so there's a lot less detail work. It's just modifying things. So things have gone very smoothly, which is good. But I'm now getting to the point where I'm starting to lay out the layout. It's just a weird thing. I'm creating the layout for the second volume of the zine, and a lot of it is borrowed from last year's zine, but with some changes. I found ways to make the layouts and stuff even a little bit better. And one thing that was tricky last year, and which resulted in a lot of time, was working on the text for the zine. Based on my design background, type is everything. Like, you can do a design using only type and you can make it look amazing. But at the same time, it's very detail oriented. And so the process of writing the stuff for last year's zine, and you plug it in there, then you see like the spacing's kind of weird. So you have to start tweaking things, and you start changing a sentence here or there so the line length fits better and all that sort of stuff. And it really took so much time to do that. And I don't even know if anyone even reads anything. I think they just go through like, oh, cool, pictures of a rock. Yeah, that's nice. But this year I'm doing something a little bit different. So before we started recording today, I was doing some test runs because I want to have it be handwritten for the type that's on there. Because as we talked about in one of our last episodes, a few episodes back or whatever, talking about, imperfection and all that. And I figured by introducing the aspect of imperfection to the type, it means a lot less work for me. So my line length is 2.5 inches for the column of type. And so I kind of created this guide, which is, I think 4.5 inches wide. And then I have just lines on it. So it looks almost like a ladder in a way. And I printed that out, and it's almost the entire length of a sheet of paper. And I put a piece of paper on top of that. And then that way I can see those lines through it, as just so I can keep all my handwriting perfectly straight along the line and not go too far on either side. And I did a test, and I just hand wrote out what the type would be for, one of the pictures in particular and one of the spreads in the zine. And then I went ahead and I scanned that in, and then I shrunk it down to the 2.5 inches wide, and it looks really good. And so the reason I mention this is, first of all, it's one more way of getting rid of that sense of perfection in one's work that makes it easier from my end. I mean, I just wrote 2 paragraphs. I didn't even really think about what I was going to write ahead of time. I just started writing it out. And then I read it back. I'm like, well, this is perfectly coherent. I'm not overthinking it. I'm not going through and changing one word for another word. And it fits really nicely in the layout. And then the other thing too is it makes it more personal, because you could see the handwriting. You can see the little imperfections in there. And I think that is something that is missing with so much stuff when it comes to, I don't know, just everything that's presented. Things are so very polished these days. And one of my whole things with the things that I create, this is sounding very profound. One of the things with the things I create, it's hot in my office right now. It's mid-August when we're recording this. Yes, many excuses. But one of the things I try to make things more personal. And so I've tried to use handwriting on a variety of things, whether it's the unpolished zines with my entries in the field, In the print portfolios, I include a handwritten portion for the story of each trip on the vellum, now with this handwriting in the zine. I think it ties everything together, but it just adds that other element. I think is one of the things that has allowed me to get to where I am with everything that I'm doing. You know, you can't work on too huge of a scale necessarily when trying to keep things more personal, but I think it's something that people can that people notice. So it's just one of those things where if anyone's working on some sort of project out there, the more you can do to make it personal, I think you have a greater chance of success with it. So I'm pretty happy with how this turns out, and I'm looking forward to writing all the stuff for all these for all the spreads, and then dropping it in the layout, and just, I don't know. I think it's kind of a fun part of the process.
Yeah, that perfection aspect is what kills me the most.
Yeah.
And just the inability to allow for imperfection. Like a little bit earlier before we started recording, I was messing around with my own ebook. I have a couple that are in progress that I have different ideas for what I want to do with them, whether they become little zines or just regular ebooks. But regardless, I have the general format for one series that I want to do. And it's 8x9 is the general size of it. And I was trying to figure out, well, I want obviously a decent amount of writing into this because that's part of who I am.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, what size should the text block be? And man, that's killing me.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, if I do 7x8, that makes a nice clean 1-inch border around the text.
Yeah.
But is that going to be too wide for 2 columns? Or is that going to be not wide enough? And just so many different questions because I don't have text to fill those blocks in with yet, which is making it much more difficult. But I also like the idea of a lot of negative space around text. I love, and I think Craig Maud does this in his books. He just has, it's a B3 vertical sized book. And so roughly call it letter page for Americans. And it's upper middled, if that makes any sense. I know what I'm saying, but you may not. And there's just a lot of negative space around it. And he chose this beautiful font that he paid a ton of money for the rights usage, which I can't imagine doing, but regardless.
Yeah.
And it looks great because there's everything just works really well for it. And I think of that with this project. I'm like, well, that'd be really nice to have a lot of negative space around it. But then I think, obviously, that's going to change how many pages you need to use for the text in order to fill that essay out. And is it going to be too many pages? And there are so many questions that are largely unanswered, mainly because I don't have this text written. But even with it written, I'm still going to go back and forth trying to find what the perfect way of doing this is, because I want it to look as good as possible. But like you said, I think there should definitely be room for some imperfection, not sloppily done, but nonetheless not mechanical.
Yeah, and with type, one of the important things is the line length. Where if you have too many words in one line, you're just going to look at this block of text here and be like, I don't want to read this. Versus if it's a bit of a shorter line length, you look at it, it's like, oh, it's not that bad. I could read that. It's just that's the other thing to be aware of. Break it up into 2 columns, but then have a more friendly line length. And I don't remember off the top of my head what the magic number is, but it's like, I don't know, it's like 8 or 10 words or something like that on a line. On average is pretty good, pretty approachable. But sometimes I'll see where you have a person has bought type in a book, and not like an article or anything like that, but maybe it's like a introduction or something in a photo book. And the line length is really long. Most of the time I'll just be like, yeah, I'm not reading that. And I'll just like, show me the pretty pictures. That's what I'm here for, So that's also a big aspect of it.
Well, should we move on to our artist of the week and wrap everything up?
Yes. Who do we have this week?
All right, so we have Beth Bulow, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. Sorry, Beth, if you're listening and I got that wrong. But I found Beth's work through the Landscape Photographers Worldwide Discord. Particularly, there is, if you're looking at her grid, it's on the far left, the middle photograph, the carousel of Death Valley images. She had posted them 2 days ago as of this recording. And they're abstract photographs of Death Valley dunes that in particular had caught my eye.
Oh, yeah.
And she writes in the caption, reading about the record heat in Death Valley National Park this summer, I was drawn to revisit images from my January 2023 experience in the dunes. This is a collection of abstract sand portraits, each showing the shifting moods and otherworldly nature of the landscape. I did a bit of extreme processing on the fourth one, but the others are how I saw them.
Yeah, and also one of the things that she's doing here, which I love for sand dunes photos, is tilting the camera or turning the photo 90 degrees from where it was taken, where it introduces that sense of abstracting the landscape even more so.
Yeah,
and it looks like 1, 2, 3. Well, most of them seem like other than the third image, it looks like pretty much all of them are tilted to the side, which brings on a different form, which is really cool.
Yeah. And that fourth one that she's referencing is almost metallic. It looks like almost like a like mercury, just in certain light. The liquid mercury, not the planet. It's very interesting how she saw these and how she went about putting them together in, like you said, playing around with unconventional ways of seeing what is a very overshot location or subject matter, at least depending on who you ask. And I really love what she did. The very final frame of this carousel is a 3x3 grid of all 6 of the images together to kind of see them and how they play together, which it's not to say that they don't play well together, but it's interesting to see.
Well, it shows the variety, which is nice.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yes. She's also got another one, not so much a landscape photograph, but a photograph of architecture, black and white, from July 29th, mid-afternoon at the gardens, she has in her caption.
Yeah. Really interesting angles of light there, and then all of the form and the lines and stuff.
Yeah. I just really love the tonality that she has in this photograph. I've been struggling lately among many things, but one of them being the tonality that I want to achieve in my black and white photographs. And a lot of my work has consistently been a bit dark, heavier on the shadows and the blacks rather than midtones. And I don't know, there's something about this look that she has achieved here that just works really well across the board.
Yeah. And I'm scrolling down through her work, and she's got a lot of stuff posted here. I mean, I'm on the computer here where it, you scroll down and then it reveals more, then it reveals more. I haven't hit the end yet. I'm still scrolling. But one thing I noticed is that there is a strong sense of consistency among her work, despite there being a variety of subjects. I mean, down here at the very bottom, some of the first photos she posted, I see lots of detail photos of botanical stuff. I see some color, some black and white, but I see some close-ups of some flowers, some leaves and stuff. And then right next to that, there's a image looking up at some skyscrapers, and it fits in with everything else because it's all about, there's a similarity among the work in terms of, the shapes, repeating forms, stuff along those lines, where you can see that it is something that is consistent among all of her work here. And the first photo she has on here, she posted on September 2nd, 2021. But to have, that many photos of her on a variety of subjects, but everything is very consistent. That's certainly the mark of an artist who knows what they're doing. So that's really good. Yeah, she has some fantastic work.
Yeah, I just was scrolling a little bit through her website, which she has linked to in her Instagram bio, since now they allow multiple links. And of course, she has her link tree that has even more links.
Yeah.
But I was scrolling through her website, and she's got a lot of really nice stuff on there. I wouldn't say a lot. It's very nicely curated. It's not too much. Because I found that a lot recently, just looking at various photographers' websites. You'll go into a gallery and you're just overwhelmed by all of the stuff that they have. And that could be a good thing in the sense, like, because you have the variety, I guess. But at the same time, it doesn't, like, you go onto her website and it's very obvious what she is attracted to and what she enjoys photographing and what she enjoys photographing very well. Yeah, so I'm definitely going to be playing around with her website and checking out her podcast that she has, because she has an interview with TJ Thorne from a couple of days ago, actually. I'm going to have to take a listen to that.
Yeah. Yeah, she's got fantastic work. Definitely a excellent artist of the week.
All right. And with that, we're done.
I hope you enjoyed our creative banter. You can learn more about Cody's work by visiting his website, codyschultz.com. And you can find my work at benhorn.com. For further discussion, join us at patreon.com/creativebanter. It's a place where we can interact with you, the listener. And although we greatly appreciate those who contribute by joining a tier, discussions are open to everyone, whether you're a paying member or not. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you around next time.